Welcome to Suzette's Guilty Pleasures. This is a chance for you to be a part of the craziness in my head. I'm your host, Suzette. On today's episode, we will be speaking to Phil, aka the Blerd Explorer, who will be talking about being an expat in South Korea and about his book that he wrote called The Black Traveler's Guide to Daegu. Sorry, say it again. Daegu in South Korea and his experience overall. Welcome, Phil. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So what time is it right now in South Korea where you're at?
Right now it's 10:20 a.m.
Wow. Okay. And it's 9:20 in my time at night. So, all right. So let's get into it. Oh, your bio. Did you want to speak a little bit about yourself for the listeners?
Yeah, sure. For those who don't know, so I'm from South Carolina. I graduated. So what led me to South Korea was I was in my last semester of college and I was trying to find a job, like like all seniors do. And this is in fall of 2015, and then I came across an ad on the university job board about teaching English in South Korea. So after doing a little bit of studying and looking more into that, I said, okay, yeah, this might be something I wanted to do. Now, I always wanted to travel abroad, but I didn't know how to do it or where to start.
Right.
And unfortunately, growing up, I I had an opportunity to go. I went to Germany when I was like 6 years old, but of course, I was six. I don't remember anything what happened then.
Right.
So I would say South Korea is kind of officially my first trip abroad.
Okay.
And my content is about trying to encourage more Black people to travel, to see the world, get more to lead, especially African Americans.
Okay.
Because we're kind of underrepresented minority when it comes to like travel and tourism based industry.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let me ask you this: how many Black people that's traveled abroad that wasn't military?
Like travel just to visit or travel to live?
Both, either way.
Travel to visit. I would probably say two handfuls maybe of Black people that I know of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's different than most people. Like the most responses, everybody I always hear that I did interviews on, everybody says 1, 2, or 0 mainly. Like they don't know anybody. I wasn't military.
Okay. So when you were in military, like where were you stationed?
I'm not military. I almost did join the military at one point.
Oh, you almost did. Okay.
But I decided no, I'm going back to school. It's funny enough, my parents, they kept trying to pressure me to join the military because they said if I wanted to travel, I should do that. I'm like, no, I want to travel my own time.
Right. And you want to travel the way you want to travel to be able to really explore the country and really get to know it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So let me ask you, were there any other, so you already answered one of my questions, which was where you are originally from. But were there any other countries you had in mind, or was it you saw this opening for South Korea and you just said, you know what, that's it?
I always wanted to go to Japan like for years.
Okay.
Mostly thanks to a Cartoon Network because of anime, Japanese cartoon. So I had the inspiration to travel to Japan, but I didn't know how to do that. And when I was looking into teaching English abroad, I saw they had teaching English programs in Japan.
Okay.
I was kind of just like comparison, see which country's better, and I figured South Korea has better options, and also it's a little bit less expensive than Japan in terms of living abroad, living there, and as well as being a tourist too, actually.
Okay.
So I still haven't gone to Japan yet because again, it's a little bit more expensive to visit there.
Wow. Okay. Even like if it was like a weekend trip or anything, it's like it's not worth it.
I mean, it's still worth it, but I guess the fact that I guess for me, because it's like, for example, like there's an island called Jeju, same thing, same problems. Like it's right there. So I guess when I travel, I guess we're initially pre-COVID, it's like I always want to try other countries a little bit far away,
Okay.
So like, yeah.
Okay. And how long have you been out there for? How long have you been living
for? May 2016. Now I'm in my 5th year anniversary right now.
Wow, congratulations. That's amazing. So can you describe like your whole, like what has your experience been like living out there? Like from, obviously there's a different culture from the States to South Korea. Like what has it been like living out there? Culture shock or any of that stuff?
Obviously, this has been culture shock, being so go from diverse to like being to a nation that's very homogenous where everyone looks the same. So anybody who's not Asian, East Asian particularly, like you're gonna stand out pretty hard.
Right.
Now I mentioned in the book, like all foreigners will get stares at, even in big city like Daegu, it's going to happen.
Right.
However, the darker you are, or you have more unique hairstyles like dreads, like you have, you're gonna get more stares than any white person. It's going to
Right.
happen.
Right.
It's more, and I emphasize a lot. It's mostly because of that curiosity. Because again, like South Korea is a homogenous nation, like so obviously anybody who looks different, who strays from the norm, is going to be standing out more.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you able to describe for listeners who may not know, what is an expat? Can you describe that?
Yeah, expat is for those who leave their country to either work or maybe study abroad temporarily in another country
Okay.
for a certain period of time. Some will do it for a few months, maybe a year or two, or maybe it's gonna be permanent. So everyone's gonna be different. There's different levels of expats, I guess you could say.
Right. And I know you said that you're going in your fifth year. How
Yes.
long do you feel that you're going to stay out there? Do you feel like you're going to stay out there longer? Is there somewhere else you're going to look to live?
Longer, maybe look somewhere else too. Right now, so I work as an ESL teacher.
Okay.
I've been doing that here. Mostly I started in what we call Hagwons or private English academies, doing like after school, like Sylvan Learning Center type of places, I guess you say.
Okay.
Mostly they're for profit, trying, parents would pay hundreds of dollars a month, maybe close to $1,000, teach to have their children learn English.
Oh, wow.
Unfortunately, that's mostly been nothing but bad experiences, mostly bad management,
Oh,
things of that nature. I got stories on mine. Uh, and it's funny enough, like I actually switched over to get a public school job, and I managed to get my first public school job in the city of Incheon, South Korea.
okay.
And the bad part is, I started that job in 2020,
Wow.
literally when things, just as soon as things went south for
Right.
everybody.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Unfortunately, at that school, I was working at there's an English center in the public school, in the elementary school.
Okay.
I never had to actually teach. Unfortunately, we just never opened up to the what.
Yeah.
So I and unfortunately, I got furloughed from July 2020 up to February 2021. So I wasn't
Wow.
working. I was
Right.
stuck at home on reduced salary. I still got paid, but reduced salary.
Right. Right.
And I was hoping to stay. Maybe the principal, say, "Hey, sorry, we couldn't have you work this year. Can you stay on?" I probably would have done that, but unfortunately, he decided not to renew any of our contract, my co-teacher's contract, my boss's contract.
Okay.
Um, so I started looking for another job, and I got my current job right now in the city of Ulsan, which is like a small coastal countryside town on the east coast.
How far is that from you?
That's what at the time now Incheon is close to Seoul, which is like in the northwest part. I'm on like kind of in the middle on the east side of Korea.
Okay.
So it'll take about 5-6 hours to get there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's far. Wow.
Now Korea is a small country, the size of, I would say probably South Carolina. So like get around most states, like it's size of some certain states. So it can take at least about 5-6-7 hours to get around. There are many ways to get around Korea. You can take the intercity buses, like basically their version of the Greyhound.
Right.
You can take the bus, the train, and of course there are planes if you want to. So getting around Korea is pretty easy.
Okay. Okay. And you said living out in Daegu, it's cheap. It's
Daegu.
cheaper than, is it cheaper than Seoul? I think in your book you did state that it is still cheaper than Seoul, and there's more to do in Daegu than there is in Seoul. If my
Well, I
memory
would
serves me.
say it's more designed, like, okay, because obviously Seoul being the capital, Korea's been popular for like the past few years thanks to the K-pop wave. So obviously,
Right.
when you think Korea, you think Seoul. So obviously it's more tailored, designed to have more uh foreign based, I guess, tourist traps, I guess you could say.
Okay.
I mean, Korea still has those. There's gonna be restaurants that have English menus, lots of pictures and stuff.
Hmm.
Now, the way I see like this travel tip, when you travel anywhere in the country, look at who eats where. Like, if you see more locals there than tourists, then of course it's not going to be a tourist trap. So you also want to watch out for that.
And what do you mean when you say tourist trap? For those who may
Like,
not understand.
yeah, for those who don't know, tourist trap. Think of a place like a restaurant that's clearly designed, that's been marketed to death. Like, you probably find so much information about a location or a restaurant. The price, like for example, you can find example. There's a South Korean barbecue restaurant, right? It has an all English menu. Has lots of pictures and everything, but there's
Okay.
more foreigners eating there than Koreans.
Wow. Okay.
So that's mostly like, if you see more Koreans there, then it's probably a safe bet. Now, to be fair, there are, let's say, example, the city of Busan. a coastal beach town, second largest city.
Okay.
There are some restaurants that a lot of Koreans eat there too. Sometimes
Oh,
you don't want that. Sometimes they want that expat type of meals. That's fine, of course.
okay.
And
Mm,
another good tip I would say is if you see, just like any other country, if you see a lot of taxi drivers and the cars parked in front of the restaurant, that's a good spot to eat.
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Is it because it's popular?
yeah, because cheap place to eat for taxi drivers.
Okay.
Yes, this is also not just for Koreans, but not just for Korea, but anywhere in the world. Like if you go anywhere in the world, you see more taxi drivers there than
Okay.
parked the cars there for lunchtime, dinner time, whatnot. Then yeah, you found a good spot.
Right. Okay. That's cool. Okay. That's good. What has it been like teaching the kids out there? Like, how have they been receptive to you? Um,
Mhm.
and things like that.
Overall, of all the schools I worked in, like every time, most of them have never seen a black person, or I have been their first black teacher, or I've been the first black teacher.
Right.
Now, some had it before. There was one job that I worked at one this one lady, Daisy. I think she's from Florida, sister from Florida, and this one guy named Bruce. He was a Mexican guy with lots of tattoos,
Right.
and so now funny enough, in Korea, tattoos are kind of a bit sensitive topic, kind of
Oh.
controversial.
Oh.
I get I get maybe because of Yakuza or something like that. I'm still not too sure about that.
Okay.
So admittedly, he was telling me how when he first started that job, the parents were concerned, complaining that the teacher had tattoos, and the boss,
It was
tried
visible.
to explain like, that's the culture, that's how they do things. So,
Right.
and of course, the kids got used to it. They were amazed by it, of course.
Right.
And throughout the years, my kids, like being the first black person they met, be fascinated with my skin tone, my hair. So I touch my hair, arms and legs and stuff. I'm like, guys, please stop. But now I heard stories about people touching black other Koreans and also other countries in Asia, like trying to touch black people's hair.
Yes, I've heard that.
Yeah, now just I want people to realize again, it's all out of curiosity because a lot of people may live in the countryside or don't live in a major metro city where there's a lot of black people. So obviously you're going to stand out. So don't let that scare you from traveling. Like
Right.
I know it does feel like you're a peg zoo or zoo animal,
Yes.
but
And
again,
I've
don't let
heard
that. Yeah, don't. Yeah, me too. It happens to me too. But again, just mind your business, walk away because you're not going to see them again. You're on vacation, so who cares?
right, right. True. That's true. That's true. Because I've heard of I remember my daughter had, I forget where she was leaving. I think she was flying from Malaysia and she had to stop
Mhm.
in, I don't remember where, but it was, I think it was Japan, or I don't remember, but it was one of those Asian countries. And I remember she had said her and her friend were at the airport and they were just staring and they
Yeah,
wouldn't stop staring at them, right? And
yeah,
they were like taking pictures and stuff like that, and they
yeah,
felt really uncomfortable, you know?
yeah.
But is it like
That
that
I've heard so
only in the
too.
smaller parts? Like Japan, I guess Japan would be considered the more cultural. So is it like that
Yeah,
even in Japan, or is it just in like the countries
it's
and
just based in Asia in general as a whole. It's going to happen in Asia as a whole
okay,
because
okay,
again, remember, everyone's homogenous. So pretty much everyone looks the same everywhere in Asia,
right.
like China, Japan, Korea, Thailand. Uh, I'm trying to think of where else. Cambodia, all that stuff. So
Right.
again, so the pictures, the stares, people going to talk about you. It's going to happen.
Okay.
Again, it's just don't let that scare you. I mean, I was going to make you a little bit comfortable. Again, you're not going to see those people ever again. So just
Right, right.
don't worry about that. Also, I have been to Malaysia. I want to go back so much. I love that country.
That's what I've heard. I heard it's beautiful there.
It is I've been to Kota Kinabalu, the beach area. I've been to the capital, Kuala Lumpur. It's very nice. The food is amazing.
Okay.
Uh, yes, I hope to go back. I'm still debating on what's my first post-COVID trip. I'm debating between Taiwan, Malaysia, or Thailand,
Okay.
possibly Vietnam. So I don't know where to go.
Right. Is it cheaper? Like, what is your like to fly from where you are, for instance, to go
Yeah.
to like maybe Malaysia or Thailand? Is it cheap? Like, you know how it is in the States, if you fly within
Yeah.
the US, it's cheap. Is it the same way there?
Um. Well, for one, it also depends on which airport you go to, what airport you fly from.
Okay.
So, like for me, if I wanted to say, I guess like go to Malaysia, I could
Mhm.
fly from Busan, which is a little bit closer to me than Seoul, but I'll
Okay.
probably have to pay a little bit more.
Okay.
So, whereas first, if I went to the capital of Incheon Airport, which is the large airport, massive airport, a very nice airport too.
Right.
To fly from there, yeah, I'll pay cheaper, but I'll take a little bit longer because I'm flying from the capital area.
Hmm. Okay.
So
So let's talk about the Blerd Explorer. So
yeah,
your book. So
yeah.
you wrote that book and I read it and you were talking about the different places in Dengue
Mhm.
and then, comparing it to Seoul and things like that.
Yeah.
What prompted you to want to write about, like, why did you want to write this book?
Well, actually, I wrote actually another book too called The Black Charge Guide to Incheon.
Okay.
Really, yeah. So these two books, well, for one, what inspired me, again, as I mentioned before, was the lack of travel information from a Black perspective.
Hmm.
Now, over the years, there have been more, like, as you've seen, like, for a long time, you probably know more than me, like, when you look at like travel YouTube channels, TV shows, most of them are white people, right? You
Hmm.
see more white
Yeah.
characters, you hear the stories about travel from a white perspective, right?
Right.
There are a lot of white YouTubers that I do follow that I really do enjoy their content, right?
Right.
However, obviously, as I mentioned before, a Black person's experience can be heavily different than a white person's.
True.
And yeah, over the years, we've seen, especially in the last decade, towards the end of the decade, previous decade, we saw more travel Instagrams, YouTube, more Black travel Facebook groups, which is great. It's
Right.
awesome to have that resource. But again, it's like sometimes what happens, why don't we have like a green book, I guess, for Black people, I guess, I'm saying, for travel internationally.
Okay. Okay.
So I said, instead of start, which is the reason I started my blog, is like you said, stop whining and complaining, let's try to do something.
Okay.
And so that's what led me to do that. And I figure since no one's done, especially I remember there was a report, there was a study done. I gotta find the report that said African American tourism is
Mhm.
expected to be about $60 billion industry.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, okay, let me chop on top of this.
Right.
I'm a business major for record. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
That's all right.
So I figured business major. So I'm thinking, okay, yeah, that's true. There's potential more Black people traveling. Huge market right there to get involved in, and no one's really done this type of content right here. What I'm doing, so it's like,
Exactly.
why not jump onto this?
Exactly.
And I
Exactly.
figured, right, if I make two books right now after post COVID, and by the time it's safe to travel post COVID, right, I figured, okay, my name's out there, people know it, sales are going to go up. Look at this.
Exactly. Yes, yes. And it's true because I am noticing that Black people are starting to travel a lot more. Black people are
Exactly.
starting to explore the world and see what's out there, whether it's with a group of people or by
Yeah.
themselves, right?
Yeah.
Um, I joined quite a few Black travel groups also, even like just women, a Black women's travel group, and where they talk about where they travel by themselves, right? And living in being expats in different countries, so right. So I mean, it's really interesting to see how they're so open to it because I
Yeah.
feel like before Black people never thought about coming out of their country or where they're
Yes.
from,
Or the
right?
state, the city, right? Because in general,
Exactly.
like, most Americans never left their state or their city, and then some
Yes.
people are just proud of that. And I'm like, that's just scary. Like, why are you proud to be? That's no problem where you're from. You see, you're from Dallas. You can be proud of Dallas, but it's like, why not go live somewhere else? Like,
True.
I mean,
It's so
if you
true.
want to come back to your city where you're from, then that's fine. But at least I say this: if you're in your 20s, like for any young person listening to this, when you finish high school or college, leave your hometown. Just go
Yes.
somewhere else. Now,
Exactly.
obviously, I understand why we can't do it now, of course,
Right.
but when it's safe to do so, move. Like, just
Right.
go somewhere else. You're not missing anything.
Experience it. It's all about
Yeah,
the experience, right? And that's
exactly. Like,
and just like you said, like when I hear some people say they've never left their country, I'm like, what? Like not even like across the border or anything, but some people are just
yeah,
like,
like Canada, Mexico. Like, Jesus, why
yeah.
not? Like,
Makes no sense. But I mean, it's to each, obviously to each their own. And I mean,
right,
sometimes some people just don't have an interest in wanting to know what
right.
the world's about. So I mean,
Of
I get
course.
that piece of
I
it
get that, but at least once in your life, so I say at least go travel to another country. Like,
for
you don't
sure.
have to travel all the way to Asia or Africa, wherever. Like, even if you start
Right.
small, like go to Mexico, go to Canada, they're right there. The
Exactly.
Caribbean and South America too.
Right.
Um, Now, also big travel tip, I would say this: like everyone's travel experience is going to be different. Everyone has their own travel. It's like,
Yes.
for example, a lot of Black people they want to go to Africa now. Me,
Right.
I'm gonna say for the best for last. That's me.
Okay.
The best for last. I want to tackle Asia, Europe, Middle East, South America, and then go to Africa. Say the best for last. That's just me.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So,
Well,
and
that's
of
good.
course,
I
yeah,
do. Sorry.
yeah.
Did you travel anywhere before you went to to South Asia, South Korea? Have you traveled
Uh,
anywhere
I,
before that?
No, I mean, like I said, I went to Germany to visit my dad when I was like 6, but that was
Right.
it.
That's the
After
only
that,
it.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, after that, no. During my time stays here, I've been to Philippines twice, Malaysia twice, Taiwan recently. My last trip was in Taiwan, in 2019 for a 3-day weekend because it's so close right here.
Right.
And I love Taiwan. It's one of my favorite countries.
Oh,
If yeah, if you ever think about if you think about going to Asia, you think between China or Taiwan. I say Taiwan all day, every day. Great
wow.
weather, awesome food. The people are much nicer,
Okay.
and of course, for anyone listen, it's actually one of the most LGBT friendly countries in the world, in Asia
Wow.
particularly.
Really, eh? That's interesting. Okay. Well, that's good. Um, I know like obviously COVID is happening, but what's COVID like what has it been like out there? Like I know every country has experienced COVID
Yeah,
differently and stuff with lockdowns and things like that. So how has it been like out there?
it's been crazy. Like I said, I started my previous job at Incheon, South Korea, in the northwest part. I got that job just as I got the job offer as soon as like early February when things really started to go crazy around the
Right.
world. Unfortunately, my favorite city with Daegu was the first epicenter. It was the epicenter of COVID at the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, epicenter. Yeah, it was sad. Like the streets were empty. Like this is an area that scene where downtown used to be, packed. Like especially
Right.
on nights and weekends, especially on the weekends, like people going out drinking, having a good time. And also, by the way, Korea is a very drinking country, so like if you love to get your drink on, you have a great time there.
What's the
But
age? What's the age starting age for drinking?
now in Korea, adult age is 19. You're considered adult at
Okay.
19 years old. So, or at least 18. Now they usually have go 1 year older than you. So 19 for them, 18 for us,
Okay.
technically. But
Okay.
so and unfortunately, throughout 2020, the Korean government, of course, had restrictions of bars, restaurants,
Mhm.
gyms. You got to shut down temporarily or have limited numbers. And of course,
Mhm.
unfortunately, many people lost their jobs, they lost their businesses. Sadly, they haven't recovered. And sadly, some of the big cases that kept continuing to grow was unfortunately, due to the churches here in Korea.
Oh,
They continue to meet, just like in America, churches, pastors, they still continue to meet in full capacity
wow.
or try to keep it secret too, which led
Right.
to some numbers. So,
Wow. That's different. Wow.
and
Okay.
recently this year, there was an outbreak in near the capital area, probably like Seoul, Incheon. And so that region, that area, had all the foreigners go get tested, mandatory testing.
Okay.
Uh, and of course, there was backlash, mostly from white people complaining, "Oh, this is discrimination. This is harassment."
Right.
And, black people were joking like, "Oh, first time? This is your first time discrimination?
Yeah,
What?
right.
What? No." I mean, there was some criticism, legit criticism, because at the time they had there were limited areas where foreigners could get tested, to the mandatory testing. So of course,
Right.
that ended up having more long lines and
Right.
chances of people passing COVID, not social distancing.
Right.
Me personally, during my furlough period from July of 2020 to February, even up to now, I stayed at home.
Okay.
Like I didn't want even me and my good friend Rachel. We talked about this. Like we rarely go out because we know like if we were to get sick, it could hurt future job hunts. Like if it could probably hurt our chance of getting a job.
And why would it hurt the chances? Just because
Well, yeah.
you had COVID or like
Even if I had COVID and recovered just fine.
right.
Now, for those who know, so when you work in South Korea as an ESL teacher, you have to get like a mandatory health exam every time you start a new job, even
Okay.
if you're in the country.
Wow. Okay.
So, you got to check your health, your blood pressure, STDs, HIV, make sure you're good to go. Now, I'm not sure it's true or not, but I didn't want to take the risk
Right.
because if, say, for example, if I went to the hospital, got tested, quarantined, and still recovered, right?
Hmm.
There's probably gonna be on my health record saying, "Oh, he tested positive for COVID,"
Right. Okay.
and I understand why, of course. So employers might be kind of scared, hesitant, to have a teacher around students who tested positive,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
so that hurt my chances.
Right.
I hate to be endorsed. But it's like it's good. I gotta be patient. I gotta wait.
Right.
Even now, like I live in my town, like has some of the lowest cases in the country, but even then, I still don't risk going out as much.
Right. So
I still wear a mask and everything.
Okay. Is it easier? What's the experience of you getting a job as a foreigner?
Mhm.
Like, is it easier because you are a foreigner and you're trying to teach English? Is it easier for you to get a job because you're a foreigner, or are you still experiencing hardship because you're a foreigner, but you're also Black?
Both. So ESL teaching, pre-COVID, is easy. Pretty much, as long as you had a college degree and a credit from university and no and clean background, anybody could do this job.
So
Which,
you
to
don't
be
need
fair,
anything. You don't need a teaching or a
now of
teaching or
course,
English anything.
if you were an education major or worked with kids and also had like or English major, you would have definitely got more advantage in the job market in the job hunt for sure. Especially if you teach it in public school like I do
Okay.
now, that would definitely help a lot more.
Okay.
But uh, unfortunately, and I mean, everybody knows this though. So only people who could teach English in South Korea is either you're from the U.S., Canada, the U.K., Ireland, Scotland, South Africa, and Australia. Those countries can only teach here, sadly.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's the visa law. That's the law.
Right.
And unfortunately, it's not a secret. Like everybody knows, it's like if you're a white girl from America or Canada, you're gonna get first dibs. Like even if a Black person has the same or more qualifications than a white applicant, there's
She's
more
gonna.
like yeah, it's gonna be discriminated. Like for example, back in 2019, I was living in Daegu. My contract was about to end,
Mhm.
and I was trying to find another job. And the recruiter I was using, he just straight up told me like, "Hey, listen, he's having a hard time finding a job because some of the schools don't want to hire a Black teacher
Right.
for a white girl."
Right.
I'm like, okay. I mean, it didn't hurt my feelings. I'm like, okay, thank you for the honesty at least.
Right. Right.
Because at least, that way I'm not wasting my time on this. Like, okay, so they don't
Exactly.
want to hire. Yeah, so I was like, okay, oh, you don't want because you don't want to hire a Black teacher. All right, cool. Next, keep moving. Next
Right.
city.
Okay. What's
So
the
that doesn't. Yeah,
sorry,
nowadays, unfortunately, uh, because of COVID, people lost their jobs. More and more people are trying to come to South Korea to teach English.
really?
So there's more supply of teachers than there's demand of jobs.
Wow.
Yeah. And unfortunately, some of these hog ones in private English schools, a lot of them lost many of those teachers, their businesses, those schools have been closing because of COVID, because of
Right.
the lockdown. And
So
because
hold on.
of
So sorry.
yeah, sure.
So you said that there's more supply teachers than there is jobs. So are those teachers foreign teachers, like from
Yeah, foreign
foreign?
teachers.
So you don't have
Yeah.
to come there without a job. Like you can just come there and then start looking for a job. You don't have to have a job
And
first.
you could do like say tourist visa, and then like, switch over to like a job seeking visa.
Okay.
But that's the process in itself. But however, I think a lot of the employers are looking for more applicants who are already in the country right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's gonna be a bigger preference for those who are already in the country.
Okay.
True story, actually. Before I got my current job, uh, the guy who did my interview, like
Mhm.
I'm friends with him now. Like I talked to him, we hung out a few times. They told me how they had another applicant they wanted to hire. I guess the education office for me, but he was trying to tell me that he tried to tell them like, hey, listen, don't hire anyone. Look in Korea because the guy who's originally take my job, he was still in America. He was still in the U.S. So he wasn't able to make it
Oh, okay. Okay.
because when you come to Korea as a tourist, you have to do the 2-week quarantine, mandatory 2-week quarantine. You have
Right.
to do it,
Right.
and you can't leave the hotel. You can't leave your lodging whatsoever. If you
Right.
leave, you're going to face fines and get deported.
Right. But for you, because you're already there, you don't really have to do the whole week, two
No,
week period and all of that stuff.
no, I don't. Although true story though, actually I did it for my first job at Incheon. This was back when COVID just blew up.
To
So
start, you're right.
yeah, so understandably at the time, like my city, like near where I worked, there was a case already of COVID at the
Okay.
time. So the principal at the previous job, they requested me to, to quarantine the first 2 weeks of the school year.
Okay.
Understandably, of course, because again, this is back when we didn't know anything about COVID, so we
Right.
wanted to be safe.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I didn't blame him on that front.
Okay. So I have a question for you. For those who might be thinking about, whether it's to Korea or any part of Asia, what is the
Yeah, sure,
visa, I guess the visa process? So like if you can explain the process from the time that you apply to
sure.
get your visa to move to wherever you're going, what was it like for you, at least your experience?
Yeah. Now, every country, I want people to know every country has their own visa laws.
Hmm.
And of course, so always pay attention, check them out before you buy your tickets. Always check the visa rules,
Okay.
especially for tourists, because obviously some schools. Because now, one reason I emphasize more Americans, we're privileged. We have a massive privilege as Americans. We have one of the strongest passports in the world.
Okay.
You can go to almost over 100 countries, like over 120 countries, without having to apply for a visa. We can just go to the airport, get stamped, and get going.
And go, okay.
Yeah. So, and again, like some countries, you do have to apply for a visa. Like for
Right.
example, I tried to go to Cambodia, and I checked. Yeah, you got to apply for a tourist visa in advance. So always make sure you check that out before you officially start. If you decide to plan the trip, because you can always check, especially for U.S. Embassy. Like check online, make sure
Right.
you know. Okay, this country, oh, visa free. Oh, just walk in, get stamped, go in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for Americans, Philippines, Taiwan, Malaysia, I had no visa problems. I just walked in, got my tourist visa stamp.
Right.
Oh, one big note: always, always, always pay attention to your time limit on the visa. Like,
Pay
don't
attention to
overstay
what?
over there.
Oh, don't stay,
Like,
overstay your welcome.
yeah, don't overstay your welcome. Like, if your visa says okay, you're allowed, because some visa says okay, you can stay here visa free for like 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Each country's different, of course. So pay
Right.
attention to that.
Okay.
If you stay over, you can end up paying a fine and possibly get some serious trouble.
Really?
Yeah, so yeah, don't play on that. Like when it comes to immigration, like they don't play about that. Like
Okay. So
if
they're
you
really
stay over
strict
your
out
visa,
there.
not just anywhere in the world, really. This is all over the world.
Okay.
So always again, like make sure if you say okay, if you're going to stay, if say for example, I don't know, Philippines says okay, you can stay here 30 days free, for example, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Have a good time for the month, but on your last day, you gotta get out.
Right. Okay.
Now, of course, some countries you can do a visa run, where you go leave the country, come back, and then come back in. Like,
Right.
but again, always
Can you ever, if you're there and you know it's about to expire,
yeah.
can you apply while, like, reapply while you're there, or you have to leave and then come back?
I think you have to leave and come back. Again, each country is different, so you
Yeah,
always
for
want to
sure.
check.
Okay.
So I always want to check on that. Oh, also one big rule I always say when it comes to travel: if you especially going to a place like in Europe that has high pickpocket rates, or places like in South America that has high poverty rates,
Right.
never ever dress or show you got money. Don't wear jewelry. Wear some basic raggedy ass clothes. That's what I do.
Okay. And
Like dress like you
explain
go to
why,
Walmart.
like, why? Like, what's
Oh, that's yes, yes. Usually paint your target. They think, oh, you got money. Like especially if you were don't if you think about buying new clothes for a trip, don't do that. Again, just buy like cheap clothes, cheap jewelry, or even fake jewelry. Really, just
right.
again, you don't want again, you don't want people to think you got money. You're gonna be an easy target to get robbed or something like that.
Wow. Okay. That's a good
Yes.
tip. That's a good tip.
Yeah.
And I think it's
Oh,
like that in any country, real like I
sure.
think it's like that in any country where you have to just be really mindful of like what you have on your person when you're out and about,
Sure.
you know.
Now, South Korea, you don't have to worry about that because obviously, we're foreigners. No one's gonna mess with us.
Right.
And now, for the record, I'm a 6'7", 200 black man. So of course, who's gonna mess with me?
Right, right. So I
And I
have
already believe.
sorry,
Go
go
ahead.
on.
No, please go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, so I wanted to talk about, I know sometime last year, I want to say maybe late of the
Mhm.
2020, there was that whole thing about like Black people were getting kicked out of stores and stuff like that. Did you experience that? Was that where you were? Did you hear about it? Like,
No,
what was it
I
like
never heard
around
about.
that time?
I never heard about that. Now, I'm most likely gonna assume that sounds mostly they might be Africans who may have had that issues. Now, fortunately, because for black travelers, unfortunately, black people like African Americans, black people from America, Canada, UK, we're gonna get better treatment than Africans. It's just gonna happen.
And why is
Yeah,
that?
unfortunately, there's the stereotype of Africans being refugees, drug dealers, and things of that
Really?
nature. Yeah, or being poor, so being troublemakers. Whereas being from America, again, like, and of course they assume that they don't have money. They're assuming that the African travelers don't have money.
Right.
So
And I've heard that they've said that they also see the women, and they said Black women. So I never knew that it was a specific country, but I've heard it said that they see Black women as like prostitutes.
in some areas, yeah, especially African women, particularly, sadly.
Wow.
Now, unfortunately, so South Korea, unfortunately, there is a belief they do believe a lot of negative stereotypes about other cultures.
Mm,
The thing like black people from America, we're basketball players, hip hop artists. They think Russian women are prostitutes.
Oh,
You
wow.
know,
Okay.
yeah.
So they're very
So
hard. They're very strict, not strict, but they're very stereotypical.
uncultured. Yeah, uncultured mostly because again, like unfortunately in Korea culture, like it's mostly have the mentality of us against them. Like we're the best. Like everybody else. They now, of course, the younger people they're more open, more
Yeah,
trying to learn, of course, than the older generation in the past.
for sure. Yeah.
So that was just good. So I'm sure they're going to change eventually, but again, no promises.
Right. Because regardless, even though the young people are a little bit more
Yeah,
cultured than
yeah,
their parents, I mean, they still have that parent, they still have their traditions and stuff that they still
yes,
have to uphold too, right?
right.
Yeah,
So again, like again, the way I see it, just don't worry about that. Just don't worry about anything of that. Again, you're on vacation.
great.
You're never going to see people ever again. So who cares? Okay.
Right, right.
Like now, of course, I've seen myself. There's some bars who say no foreigners allowed. Like they actually even that kind of stepped up, especially last year during COVID. Like around the country, they were like restaurants posting, you know, notes on the restaurant door saying no foreigners allowed because of the whole xenophobia due to COVID.
Okay.
Despite the fact most of the cases came from Korean locals than
Right,
expats.
right.
But
Right.
yeah, oh sorry, I got a few minutes for another interview.
Okay, and we're almost done. So as part of but like even living out there, like what has it been like with the BLM movement and even like with the new movement of the Stop Asian Hate? Like what has that been like?
Well, so obviously, 2020 was hard, especially with George Floyd and
Yeah.
Breonna Taylor. That was brutal. Even for me. Like I was on the verge of tears, crying, like at work. Um, so there was one to do the protesting, but now South Korea for their laws, like foreigners can't be in a protest, even if you do. That's the rule. We just can't do it.
Okay.
We can't like go downtown and do a protest, even if we do a permanent applications. We just can't do that.
Wow. Okay.
That's hey, every country has a different rules, different
Yeah.
laws. Remember that. So
Right.
you gotta
Right.
each out different house, different rules. You gotta respect them no matter what, even if you don't agree. But
Okay.
um, now, of course, stop Asian hate. Of course, I had a friend of mine, a Korean friend of mine, asked me about that. She talked about she would love to live in America, but because the Asian hate discriminatory, it's really sad to see. Especially one of my good friends, Leon, who lives in North Carolina. She's Chinese American.
Hmm.
So she's unfortunately she told me that she's received like discriminatory hate messages, like yelling, screaming from my own people, from black people.
Wow.
And I'm
Okay.
like, what hurts me more than anything is like see my own people do these actions. Like you're just as bad as those white people who discriminate against us.
Exactly. Exactly.
You guys are the biggest. You all want to talk about, oh, we want change, we want to stop discrimination, but yet you'll discriminate others in a heartbeat. You're just as bad.
Exactly.
Look in
Exactly.
the mirror.
For sure. For sure. So before we go, like what is an advice that you would give to those who might be thinking to live as an expat? Or even recommendations? Like what are just a few tidbits that you would give?
Right. For one, if you're thinking about living abroad, figure out how you're gonna make money because obviously you can't live there in another country without living. You gotta make some kind of money somehow.
Right.
Depending on your job, there are some countries that allow you to get a visa there and work for, depending on your skill set, of course.
Okay.
Well, so you also want to check that out. Two, always look at study the visa laws. Make sure you know what you're up to. Stay up to date with those. If you can, try vacation in there and live there for like say 3-4 weeks. You got try and like get a feel for our country before you say, okay, I'm gonna live here for good.
Okay.
Yeah, because you
Okay.
don't want to like say, for example, you don't want to live to like in another city in the US, right?
Right.
If at least checking it out first. Because you
Right.
at least want to explore it, check it out, see what it's like to live there before you say, okay, I'm gonna take this job offer in this city.
For sure. For sure. Okay.
Remember, traveling is your own story. Every travel story is gonna be different. Some people are gonna love Paris, others are gonna love Germany better. Everyone's gonna be different.
Hmm.
So everyone's experience is going to be different. So remember that. And also remember, you're from America. You have one of the strongest passports in the world. You can go almost anywhere in the world. So go, why not take advantage of that?
Right. Explore the world as much as you can.
Exactly. Go
Right.
educate, explore, and show our young people, especially young black people, especially young, I want to encourage more young black men to show them, hey, yes, there's a brother out here who's living abroad, who's doing this thing and having a good time and also doing some work. So
For
plus
sure.
we need that representation too.
For sure, for sure. That is awesome. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Phil. So just from what Phil has been saying, like, if you're gonna decide to live as an expat in another country, make sure you're doing your research. to know like what you need to do. And as he said, a great tip, go and travel there first to experience it and to see if like that is where you would want to live to get the feel. And and even just with dengue, like that's another good place to visit. And I know that you had pictures. Please get his book. So he has pictures of what dengue looks like, and he talks about all the different things that you can do there once COVID, like once we open back up. So it's a great tourist book, like a tourist guide, if that's what you want to say, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes,
definitely, do your research. And as he said, everybody's experience is going to be different. So don't follow what you actually see or hear from other people, because it's not going to be the same, right?
Exactly.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for listening. And Phil, I want to thank you for joining me today. Well, this morning on your time, but thank you for joining me. The listeners, if you do want to continue to talk about the expat experience, you can follow the Blerd Explorer on Instagram at _Blerd. That's BLERD_Explorer. I will also have his contact information in the bottom. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Suzette's Guilty Pleasures, or even on our YouTube page. You can leave a comment. And while you're there, please do not forget to subscribe, like, and share. So until next time, take care, be blessed, and stay safe.
One more thing. So one more thing. So both books, my Black Travel's Guide to Incheon, 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 and the Black Travel's Guide to Daegu, DAEGU. Both books are available in ebook format only on Amazon. You pick them up right now, available now on Amazon Kindle.
For sure. And I will also include that in the bottom too.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Take care.